most of us can recognize a healthy plate of food or an unhealthy one.
Yeah.
It's how do you get onto a plan or, follow a structure and then cope with not sleeping well or a stressful day at work or kids or whatever life throws at you. How do you stop from reaching for the donuts or the glass of wine and things like that? And so my own personal thoughts on it is that it's a head journey. We take our head wherever we go, and
Hmm.
I think that's the hard bit. But there's of course, and so I use hypnosis to help people let go of the past and to build their self-worth and to gain confidence and the emotional and psychological attributes that make your journey easier and making healthy choices easier, rather than me trying to convince your brain with hypnosis that you suddenly
Hmm.
don't like something that you used to like. That sort of sounds like a cringy film rather than the reality of life. I can't make you think anything, nor would I want to. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, hello, Rose.
It's interesting you said that because I used to be able to drink milk,
Mhm.
and now I can't drink or eat anything dairy, and even the taste changed and the
Really?
smell. Yeah, gradually.
Just over time.
Yeah, over time.
That's just
And
like developing an intolerance.
yeah, very strong intolerance.
Wow. Do you find that
And and
strange
and
with
also with coffee, but I still like the smell of coffee, but the taste completely changed. And it's
wow.
nothing to do with COVID, it was well before that.
Wow, that's it's
Yeah,
unusual. Yeah.
yeah, yes. And with cheese, why I it was still in transition. I could eat like a slice of cheese, enjoy it. Second slice, I started eating, and the taste completely changed. It made me sick.
Goodness
And
me.
now I can't eat anything dairy.
Anything dairy at all. Wow. That's I've never heard of that before, actually.
No,
I know that
I
people
never heard anybody ask before, but
no.
it happened to me.
That isn't. Did you enjoy dairy before?
Very, very long time ago. I couldn't drink straight up milk, but I enjoyed cottage cheese or cheese, certain cheeses.
And now no more.
Not all of them. No, no.
That's
Can't even
tragic.
stand the smell.
That is strange. That is strange. Anyway, well, I'll start kind of at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, and I suppose yeah, a little bit about me. So I'm a therapist by trade. So my
Mm-hmm.
day job, if you want to call it that, is I'm a hypnotherapist, a counselor, and a life coach. I've also done my master's in clinical psychology, but it's the kind of day-to-day therapy stuff that I enjoy working with people one-to-one rather than stats and stuff like that. Um, so in my own personal journey, about 5 years ago, I was actually doing a sponsored run with my son, and I saw a photograph on Facebook. The organizers of the event had been taking pictures of the event, and they posted them on their Facebook page. And I saw me, and that was the day that I decided that I had to lose weight. I didn't like
Oh,
what, and I was aware that I kind of life wasn't good. Beer and eating the wrong foods at the wrong times, and just not
mm-hmm.
having any sense of self-care or self-worth, and just kind of I consider that I'd let myself go. Life wasn't how I wanted it to be in any area.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so that was the day that I started researching how to lose weight quickly, and I was on Google and YouTube and all these things. And I started sort of befriending biochemists and sort of people who really knew about how cells worked and all that sort of stuff. And I lost a lot of weight really quickly, and I was so very vocal and enthusiastic about it that I was asked to run a website supporting people on their journey. So how they
Mm-hmm.
incorporate going to the gym, or if they work on night shift, or all these, is it, do they try keto? What happens if you do paleo, and all these different routines and diets. And so for the last 5 years or so, I was kind of in my own time, like a hobby almost, but I'm really passionate about it. I was kind of giving people advice on how to sort of manage eating routines with lifestyle and stuff like that. And then just last year, I had a friend he and I were chatting, and he said, is the reason that you're so good at helping people lose weight that you're a therapist? And it was like a penny dropped, and I was like, well, of course, because like I say, I was saying to you before, Judith, that most of us know kind of what is healthy food and kind of what is food that probably you shouldn't eat too much of. That's not really the hard bit. The hard bit is how do you stay on track on a long-term journey that weight loss tends to be quite long-term. If you've had a weekend off or a wedding that you were at or a holiday away, don't let Monday turn into I'll start next week, and 6 months go by. And having a stressful day, or if you're not sleeping, or if you've been poorly, how do you get back on track? And I actually found that the things that I was helping people with in the therapy room, when they were going well, that whatever they wanted to achieve, whether it was learning a new language, learning to drive, or losing weight, all of the things, when life is going better, making healthier food choices is easy. And when life is more difficult, it's a lot easier to reach for essentially surrogates for emotional needs. A lot of us have pain from the past or hurt from the past or essentially broken bits of us inside because we've lived a life experiences often painful. And so we are trying to often salve an emotional need with food because sugar is highly addictive and it's everywhere. And so what I do now, just to sort of tell you, just as a bit about me, is I help people with the head side of the journey. And yes, we talk meal plans and emotional eaters. We all eat for emotional reasons. Yeah, and so that's what I help people do. Although I know how to lose weight nice and quickly, and that's kind of what I was going to talk about tonight. It is you have to, if you have a car and you never clean it on the inside or the outside, and you don't, get it serviced, and you don't change the oil, and if you don't give that car any time, love, or attention, then it's probably not going to look nice. It's probably not going to smell nice. It's probably not going to run very well. And we are the same. If we do not give any attention, time, and love to ourselves, then of course, we find that we run around after everyone else, prioritizing everyone else's needs. Often when we have low self-worth, we tend to try and get our sense of value from outside of ourselves. And so what happens is we always come last in the list of priorities for kindness, care, anything that's thoughtful and for well-being about ourselves never really gets done because there's always a list of jobs for everyone else. And so I help people with that and sort of recognize their own worth and things. But on the food side of things, I have found, and there's a very long version and we don't have time for it tonight, but the really, really short version, the most concise breakdown of how to lose weight or what stops us from being as healthy as we could be. Sugar is not your friend, and eating at night is not your friend. Very, very much so. And that's about as short a version as I can kind of come up with. So what I recommend to people, because there's three different aspects, and I find that they all actually work really nicely together. So calories, probably you've heard of a calorific deficit diet. So calories are energy. And so our body, no matter what height, size, health, thyroid condition, menopause, all the things that may affect, how quickly your body burns calories. Everybody's body has a certain number of calories that it requires to run for 24 hours. So whatever that number may be, if you ate exactly that number of calories, you would neither get bigger nor smaller. If you bring in more calories, therefore like more energy, than your body can use in 24 hours, it will store some of that excess energy for a rainy day. That's what we call fat. And so if we bring in less calories than our body at its current size and shape and health requires, then our body dips into that excess energy that we've stored as fat, breaks up the fat cells and takes out the energy to make up the numbers. So and this can get complicated really quickly, but if, for example, your calorific maintenance number, the number of calories that your body needed for 24 hours was 2,000 calories, then if you bring in 2,500 calories every day, then your body will store 500 calories as fat. Thus, you will get bigger. If your calorie maintenance was 2,000 calories and you brought in 1,500 calories, then you would be 500 calories in deficit of what your body requires for 24 hours. And therefore, it will dip into the fat supplies and take 500 calories worth of energy from those fat cells, thus breaking up the fat cells, thus you lose fat. That's a long-winded way of saying you have to eat a little bit less than you currently are to get smaller. Seems quite intuitive, quite common sense. So that's the first part of kind of what I would recommend as a way to lose weight. You have to kind of eat a little bit less than your body currently requires at the size that you're at. The next thing is sugar. So when we eat sugar, and that could be a teaspoon of sugar or fruit or wine, and sadly, carbohydrates, so bread, pasta, rice, potatoes, all foods have some carbohydrate in them. But particularly your stodgy, starchy, your gluten-filled things tend to be really high in carbohydrate. And once that's broken down in the body, it becomes sugar. When our body brings in sugar, or when we bring in sugar and it's broken down in the body, our liver stores that sugar. Now, what nature's intention is that we would consume food by day and undo it by night. And then the next day consume by day and undo it by night. And that would be forevermore, more or less would stay the same size. But because we bring in sugar, and particularly between our evening meal and bedtime, it's the little biscuit or the glass of wine or the packet of crisps or the toastie or the oat cake or the chocolate or the ice cream. All these things have sugar in them, and our liver absorbs that sugar. So when our body wants to undo by night what we have done and consumed during the day, it first has to break down the sugar that's in our liver, which means that through the night, that undo part of the cycle never quite happens because our body's busy trying to break down sugar. And that's why it's not that there's a million calories in a glass of wine or a little bourbon biscuit. It's more that we are putting something in place that acts as a blocker for nature's intention to undo what we've consumed that day. So if you can imagine that our body's not getting to undo by night what we did by day, but then we do that for a week or a month or a year or 10 years, that every night, every day we consume and we're not really getting a chance to undo it. That's why people get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, or can get bigger and bigger over a long period of time. So reducing, not removing. You have your keto diets and your Atkins diets where they say remove all carbohydrates from your diet, therefore there's no sugar in your liver, and that means that when your body's finished using up the energy you've consumed, it jumps straight into burning fat. I agree, brilliant. If you have a holiday in a week or in 2 weeks' time and you want to lose as much weight as possible, eat keto, cut out all carbohydrates and just live on cheese, meat, fish, eggs, nuts, and mushrooms. Not really any carbohydrates at all in them. Your body won't store any sugar, so you can get into that fat burning mode a bit quicker through the night. Brilliant. The only problem is there's no variety on your plate. So any more than 2 weeks, suddenly you've run out of options of foods you enjoy. And once you've eaten the same thing 45 times, that's why it's not a lifestyle. It's really difficult to maintain an eating routine that has next to no carbohydrates. So what I've found is you can actually lower your sugar intake without removing everything and still reap the benefits of having less sugar in your body, but not being so restrictive that you can't really long-term enjoy your meals. And so I recommend, I think that human beings are basically all gluten intolerant. Most people, when they eat bread and pasta and rice, they have a swollen tummy, they feel really bloated, they can feel sluggish. It's not good for your blood sugars, it's not good for your bowels, it's not good for your skin, it's not good for your mood, it interrupts sleep. And so I find that the more that we can withdraw, particularly the stodgy, starchy carbs from our diet, not only do we lose weight quicker, but actually we suddenly feel flatter about our stomach, we have more energy. That actually reminds me, many of us wake in the morning, eat our breakfast, and it would be cereal or toast or porridge or overnight oats, or if we're being good, fruit or fruit juice, all of which is really high in sugar. So we spike our bloods really high first thing in the morning, and then mid-morning, I need a little something to keep me going. That's because your blood sugars have crashed. So we have a little biscuit, a cup of coffee with some sugar in it, a bit of fruit if we're being good, and we spike our blood sugars again. Lunchtime, crash, I need my lunch. And then often, people talk about in the office, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Oh, I need to be something to keep me going till my evening meal. Again, biscuits, cupcake, whatever it might be. Or if we're being good, it might be a bit of fruit, blood sugar spiked. And all day, every 2 or 3 hours from waking, we're spiking our blood sugars, crashing, spiking, crashing. And that leaves us feeling not very nice at all. When we reduce our sugar or carb intake a little bit and are eating slightly less, our blood sugars and thus our energy levels tend to plateau, and they just sit at a nice steady level. And so that I would recommend to people that if they can at least reduce their sugar and carb intake a bit. For those who like being quite specific, they say that the keto diet recommends under 20 grams of carbohydrates a day. Some people like counting them, some people don't. It's not a necessity, but that is what they say. They refer to lazy keto as under 50 grams of carbohydrate a day. So you can still have a more variety on your plate than that strict keto under 20 grams. So you can still have meat and veg and fish and, plenty of things that have carbohydrates in them, but you're still limiting how much sugar is going into your body. And so that can still yield great benefits. The third thing, and it kind of couples with what I was saying, if in a hypothetical world, we ate our evening meal at 6 p.m. and had no more calories after that. So we drank herbal tea, fruit tea, water, sugar-free drinks. Not that I recommend sugar-free drinks, but for these purposes, they are sugar-free. If your evening meal was at 6 p.m., by midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, your body would have used up all the fuel that was in the food that you'd consumed that evening. And so from 1 o'clock in the morning up until the point where you have calories again, breaking fast, that's why we call it breakfast, up until that point, your body was burning fat all night because there's no more fuel from what's being consumed, and your body's looking to stay alive, so it needs to get energy from somewhere, and so it starts breaking up fat cells. So what I recommend to people is that if you can have at least a couple of hours before bed, and I would say maybe 7 p.m. would be a reasonable time if you're looking to achieve kind of significant losses. Say 7 p.m., if you could hold off till 10 a.m. the next morning with no calories at all going in, you've got more than enough time there to use up that energy from the food you've consumed that day, and then have a good run of hours burning pure fat. A lot of people as well, they get up in the morning and they go for a walk. If they're doing that, what we would call fasted, so no calories have been brought in to fuel that walking, again, their body has to step up the rate that they're burning fat because they need the energy to propel them forward for their walk, but they're not getting it from calories consumed, and it has to come from somewhere, so it burns fat. And there's lots of different ways you can do that. I have it wasn't expensive, but I've got a sauna in my house, and so every morning I have a sauna, and that again, it's like a bit like a workout because I haven't got calories coming in to fuel that, but it still requires that I have calories inside of me, so it keeps me leaner, shall we say. Stress and sleep. So the stress hormone is called cortisol. When we are stressed, our body releases it, and it tricks our body into making sugar. And so the more stressed you are, the more difficult it is to lose weight. And when we sleep, our cortisol levels go through the floor. They're really, really low while we're asleep. And so the more that you can sleep, the longer periods of time you have without your cortisol levels spiking. And so the more sleep you can have, the quicker you burn fat. And I know people who have been ruthless with what they're eating, but they're insomniacs and have, they've chosen to eat, and it wasn't by my recommendation, they've chosen to eat 500 calories a day, and that's all like super low on their calories, but they're getting about 1 hour of sleep a night. And after a week, the scales have not moved. They haven't got any smaller. And it's simply because their body is churning out so much cortisol that they're just burning sugar that's being generated in the body all the time. And so, and this is why it's reasons like that when I'm supporting people with weight loss, it's meditation and it's hypnosis classes for relaxation and sleep tracks. And because actually, although people don't often see the link between a happy and healthy mind and losing weight, they think it's all on the plate. I think that's a mistake. I think the hardest bit of losing weight is all in the head. We can all go to a shop and look at healthy things and not healthy things pretty much. But actually it's managing your sleep and your stress. And it's when life gets stressful and we are not sleeping well, that when someone says, do you fancy a donut? You say, God damn right, I want a donut. Because you're just looking for something to lighten your mood or like give you some energy. And so I like to use the word, I think that weight loss or any goal in life is a holistic journey, and not in the sort of airy-fairy sense of the word, but holistic meaning whole. I mean, that's what holistic means. And so if you forget about certain aspects of your life and think that losing weight is all about what's on the plate, it's going to be a real struggle. And anything that's a struggle is hard and not fun. And so the more that you can make it fun, the more success you'll have. Also, salt, I was actually reading a study the other day there that was saying that it's thought that up to 85% of headaches are caused by a lack of sodium. And sodium is salt. There's a big misunderstanding in the health industry, the food industry, and just about everywhere else that salt is bad for you. White table salt is incredibly bad for you. It's bleached and all sorts of other horrible processes to make it nice and white. And in actual fact, the links to high blood pressure and cholesterol and things you can attribute to non-natural sources of salt, this white table salt essentially. But your rock salt, sea salt, I use Celtic salt, Himalayan pink salt, all natural sources of sodium are incredibly, sodium is the most prevalent mineral in the human body. So I hope you've never tasted your tears, but if you have, your tears are really salty. If you've ever been doing sport or running for a bus or whatever and sweat's run down your face and you've tasted the sweat on your face, it's salty. When you go to the bathroom, any fluid that leaves your body has a lot of sodium in it. And when our body is running low on sodium, we can feel tired, dizzy, weak, have headaches. And so you may have come across Lucozade with electrolytes or electrolyte powder for superpower in the gym. And all electrolytes means essentially is salt turned into energy. And so what I recommend for people is that they make a conscious effort to add a natural source salt, be it a mug of pink salt into the bath and have a soak, or I actually drink it in my water. I know that sounds awful, but I do. Or salting your food. Also, you can get dissolvable tablets that have no sugar or calories, that have sodium in them, zero, and there's other ones on the market that mean that you can top your sodium levels up. When I'm supporting people, I'm recommending that they eat less food, they eat less frequently. People tend to think because food is fuel, that the more I eat, the less hungry I'll be and the more energy I'll have. But the converse is actually the truth, that the less you eat and the less frequently that you eat and the less that you eat and the less carbs that you eat, the less hungry that you are. I have to say that I am a faster. I am very interested in fasting and what the body can achieve. So I fast regularly for a week, 10 days, 12 days. And all that I would have when I'm doing long fasts is salt and water. And that keeps me going, working 16-hour days, running after 3 kids, full steam ahead. The most energy I've ever had in my life is after 5 days of fasting, not when I've just had a big Sunday dinner and I'm lying on the sofa and I can't move. That's more what food does to us rather than less. So as long as there's fat on your body, you actually don't need to eat. And so it's really interesting what the body's actually capable of, and all the misconceptions that we have with it. But salt, yes, salt's not salt and water, yes, Rose. So if you put table salt into water, you taste seawater flavor. It's awful. But when you put, for example, pink salt into, a teaspoon of pink salt into 2 liters of water, you actually find that it doesn't taste salty. If you're craving salt, then have it, and you'll be blown away with what happens. Think about this, and this is, I apologize for the too much information. I'm glad I'm the one that's on screen and talking. When you have the flu or any sickness and diarrhea, I've spoken to many people, and I've experienced it myself, where you can't get up off the sofa or out of your bed and you feel dead, like absolutely couldn't lift my head off the pillow, dead. That's not the illness that's making you feel that way. Because of the sickness and diarrhea and the amount of sodium that you are flushing out your system with 3 or 4 trips to the bathroom, your body is completely flushed out of any sodium. And that is what's making you feel absolutely wiped out, not any illness. And so when people are feeling tired, groggy, lethargic, have a headache, they find, and this is, I support 300 people, when they find a way of getting some salt into them, and it might be a soak in the bath or a basin of warm water, because your skin will absorb it, and dumping loads of it into your bath or your basin of water, or drink it or put it on food, or the zero tablets, any way of getting sodium into you, suddenly your energy levels come up. And essentially electrolytes means salt turned into energy. And so, yeah, it's something that I would recommend to just about everyone. It's not bad for you. It's not dangerous. If you happen to overdo it, and it's really a hard thing to do, and then when we're talking 6 spoons of salt in an hour would be probably too much. Your body would pass it out quite quickly. Much like with vitamin C, when you take in too much, your body doesn't keep absorbing it and absorbing it. Eventually, it just lets it pass straight through you and out the other side. And so, yeah, I would recommend for general performance in life. Salt also stops water retention. And I know a lot of, particularly women, find that they retain water quite a lot. And when you up your salt intake, your body stops holding on to water. Same is true of, actually, to stop water retention, consuming more water does that. Yeah. And when you're on a diuretic, well, if you're on a diuretic that's making you pass water, right? Yeah. And yeah, so actually there's a lot of things that are given out, certainly in the UK, or certainly in Scotland, if I don't speak for Scotland. They give out salt tablets, and yeah, they give out lots of things for that. Speaking of health and stuff, actually, what I also find is that I work with a lot of people with diabetes, and I think I have a lot, but it goes through me very quickly in minutes. Yeah. So the more, yeah, I'll come back to that health thing just right at that time. When you drink a lot of water, it's great. The problem is it comes out the other end, which isn't a bad thing. But every drop of water that comes out, it might go in as clean, clear water. It's coming out as salt water. And so you'll hear, if you're on TikTok or bloody social media, people talking about water fasting. And I would not, for all the money in the world, do water fasting, which essentially is just drinking water and stopping eating. It is really dangerous because you are flushing all the minerals from your body and you're not replacing them. And so it's particularly important, if you're drinking a lot of fluid and passing a lot of fluid, that you find a way to replace the sodium that will be coming out of your body. Yeah, what I was going to say about diabetes. So I'm not allowed to say reversing diabetes. That's apparently not allowed. It's remission rather than reversal. But particularly type 2, and I work with people with type 1 as well. When you drop your, and of course this is carefully, and monitoring your bloods and speaking with your consultant and your general practitioner and stuff. When you start dropping your sugar intake, and reducing your frequency of eating and how often you're eating and how much you're eating. As long as you're doing sort of biofeedback with your, whether it's testing your bloods or your sensor on your arm, as long as you're keeping your health and sort of well-being, safety as a priority, when you start dialing back on the amount of sugar that you're consuming and the frequency in which you're eating, your bloods just start to self-regulate within a matter of weeks. And I've most people that I support within 6 weeks don't have the signs of diabetes anymore. So they don't take metformin or they don't take insulin anymore. And they don't just jump off it. They are guided by their health practitioners to stop taking them because they don't need them anymore. And so the amount of health conditions, I have people that have been on sort of really high amounts of painkillers for back pain, and within 10 days of starting this kind of clean, low sugar diet, I mean diet as in a way of eating rather than being on a diet, they are no longer taking pain medication at all. Like they went from 1,000 milligrams a day to nothing simply because they just aren't in pain anymore. And so a lot of the mental health, physical health, sleep, energy, mood, skin, bowels, you know, all of these things, when you start eating less sugar, essentially, all of these things start to improve in your life. And for me, as I was saying, when I had my own kind of weight loss journey at the beginning of 5 years ago, life to me felt out of control. And so there wasn't an area of my life that I felt like I was in control at all. It felt like I was lost. And what I found was one thing I could control was what I put in my mouth and when I put it in my mouth. And so as simple a thing as that, I started to see and learn the link between I make good choices with this little thing and my weight comes down. So I was starting to see the correlation between making better choices and life getting better, even if just in that one small area of life. And that actually began to ripple out across my whole life, that I realized that taking some control and making some good choices made things better. And that was a sort of a rule of thumb for my life in general that really did. It changed my life. And I kind of joke that fasting saved my life, that finding something that kind of excited me, checking the scales and what about this and reading this article, it was something to throw my enthusiasm into, and seeing success. I lost 56 pounds in 45 days. And so my life, it felt like my life changed. I suddenly had control. And it was something that I didn't recognize that I'd had in my life. Maybe not in my adult life, I don't know, but certainly for 10 years. And so from that, there was patterns like, for example, I was a total people pleaser. I couldn't say no to anyone for anything because I didn't have any self-worth. Me learning that for me to successfully fast, it meant when I was offered a biscuit, I had to say no. Even if it was just me in the room, I fancy that biscuit. No. Learning to say no and liking to say no, even if it was a biscuit, even if it was on my own in a room, and no one was there, so it wasn't particularly scary, like saying no to a colleague or a friend or a family member. Just getting used to saying no and being okay with it expanded out into other areas of my life, where as I started to lose weight, as I started to realize that actually I'm not useless and I can accomplish things, that all began to grow into well, I'm certainly not there yet, but I'm working towards it, that these are all things that came together. The importance of self-care, that I am capable of achieving things, and all of these things can come from, and for me, I think we can't click our fingers and make our boss nice. We can't click our fingers and change our health condition. We can't change so many areas. The insomniac can't click their fingers and be a good sleeper. So there are many areas of our life that we can't overnight fix. But what we put in our mouth, what we choose to put in our mouth, and when or when not to put things in our mouth, we actually have our hands on that. It's not always easy. It's not always fun. It's it's not that it's as simple as that, but at least it's in our hands. It's something that we can walk into a shop and buy a healthier thing to eat. That's actionable. Whereas the insomniac lying on bed at night, there isn't a magic button that can suddenly make them a good sleeper. And so to find something, that was this, I'm talking about me here, but I've seen it in others as well. To find something that I could control and make better in my life was a catalyst for the rest of my life to improve. And so that's, I guess maybe that's why I'm so passionate about it. Why I think it's one area of many areas of life that can be challenging that we can actually do something about, and almost immediately see that correlation between life getting better and better choices. I hope that makes sense. I'm also aware, I hear it a lot, but I talk a lot. But we have 50 minutes left, because I realize I've only set the Zoom call for 1 hour. Either we could do the meditation. How long was my first fast? 23 hours. So I discovered intermittent fasting because I was Googling fastest way to lose weight. And in going down the rabbit hole of intermittent fasting, which is like you break up a 24-hour cycle into, say, 16-8. So 16 hours fasting and then an 8-hour eating window. Or, you know, there's various breakdowns of that 24-hour number. I quite quickly discovered, wait a minute, there's people out there talking about that you can do more than 24 hours, and I've never heard of it. And so I think I did 23 or 24, and then I thought, oh, I'll try 72. And then I went to my mom and dad's house and they'd made a big meal. So I think I cracked about 55 hours, and then sort of started again. And so I built up, and then I was doing 7 days. Eventually, well, I was working up to about 200 hours roughly a time. With drinking a lot of water, is it only salt I have to replace? I'm taking multivitamins too. Well, multivitamins, as long as you check that they're not, when you see glycine things, often look for sugar. Some vitamins have them, some don't. The three things that our body really needs. If you were, sodium, potassium, and magnesium. If you've got a bath, if you can get Epsom salts, you couldn't put too much Epsom salt in the bath. Epsom salts are pure magnesium. So if you wanted, another thing that makes people feel really good is like overkill. Go on to have a look online and find like 10 kilograms of magnesium crystals rather than a bag for £10 in the shops. You can get huge quantities, and putting like 3 or 4 mugs of Epsom salts, so magnesium crystals, into a bath gets your magnesium levels high and you feel amazing. It's amazing for sleep. Potassium, you get it from food, you get it from bananas, you get it from other foods. But you can, if you're looking to supplement it in a cheap way, this is Scottish people have a reputation for being a bit tight with money. You can buy low salt, no salt, 50-50. They're all the so-called healthy salts. So instead of being made of sodium, they're made of potassium. And so actually when I was fasting, I didn't want to get into too much of it in detail, but when I'm doing longer fasts, it's 2 liters of water, it's a teaspoon of pink salt, it's a teaspoon of no salt, and it's a 1/4 teaspoon of magnesium Epsom salts, literally bath salts, not scented ones, just pure surgical grade bath salts. And that in my water, I could literally fast until there was nothing left of me but skin and bone, as long as there was fat on my body. So sodium, magnesium, potassium. But if we're talking about just for feeling good, and you're already going to be eating hopefully quite a varied and healthy diet and, you know, plenty of food, just your sodium levels need to be topped up. Calcium, again, and there's so many of these things out there. We are led to believe, and we think it's from Granny, that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. I believe it was Kellogg's and the American food industry that came up with that one. So they were selling a fortune worth of lunches all across America, making a fortune. They were making evening meals, an absolute fortune, takeaway food, an absolute fortune, and they were looking to squeeze some more out of the market. Suddenly, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. That is where that was born. So it's not true, but it was an advertising slogan. And that was, I was thinking that because milk as well, they wanted the farming industry to grow and be successful and make a lot of money because a lot of farmers had cows. And so they had a big push on telling people how important your calcium was, pint of milk a day and all this sort of stuff. And it was to sell milk. The amount of calcium that we actually need is something insane, like a 16th of a small teaspoon of calcium a day, which you get 7 times that in your, in one meal. Like, it's ridiculous how little calcium our body actually requires, but we get it anyway. Another tip, apple cider vinegar. So if you can get your hands on apple cider vinegar, make sure it says with mother or with the mother. That's the good stuff still in it and hasn't been filtered out. If you put 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar into a glass of water, I can't promise you it's very nice, and drink it between 30 minutes between your meal or 30 minutes before your meal, in that space of time. Not only does it with water, with the mother, as in MOTHER, it simply means with like the natural good stuff still in it and hasn't been filtered out. 30 minutes before your evening meal, or 15 minutes, up to 30 minutes before, suppresses appetite, which means you get full more easily. Often our head tells us that we need to eat more, but we actually don't need to. And also the enzymes in our stomach that turn carbohydrate into sugar, apple cider vinegar, the special acid that's in vinegar, any vinegar actually, but apple cider is the best. It's almost like it has a Valium-like effect on the enzymes. So it tells the enzymes to chill and not convert carbohydrate into sugar as quickly. And so things get passed through our digestive system without the enzymes in our stomach quickly turning all the carbohydrate into sugar. And so you end up with less sugar in your system than maybe you should have had by the amount of carbohydrates that you ate. And so I would recommend before every meal, if you're, if it's doable, but certainly any bigger meals, 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar in a glass of water and down the hatch. You might make some funny faces when you drink it. It's not very nice, but very, very good for you. Also, apple cider vinegar cleans your kidneys and it breaks up and dissolves kidney stones. So I had a lady coming to one of my face-to-face meetings. She was worried about her husband. He'd been in bed for 2 weeks, like couldn't get out of bed because of pain, kidney stones. I gave her strict orders to go away and give him a shot, like a shot glass, every morning of apple cider vinegar, straight up, not diluted, down the hatch every morning. Took it for 3 days. On day 4, he said he felt a whiz, bang, and pop in his stomach. No more kidney stones. It's called a kidney shot. It cleans your kidneys, and you end up, again, sorry for the too much information, but you'd find that you have a slight gritty, grainy sediment that passes out in your urine, and that was what the kidney stones used to be, but they're now gone. So great for you is apple cider vinegar. Does anyone have any other questions? Or would like to know any additional information? Good. I'm a little bit concerned because we've only got 8.5 minutes left. 8 minutes left now. If either of you would like to do a meditation or technically it's hypnosis. The word comes with so much baggage. It's really not what people expect. It's probably going to be quite difficult to do that in now seven and a bit minutes. If you'd be happy to either, I could ask Angie if I could put another time on, or send me a message. I do sort of free little hypno or meditation things with people all the time. If you could find me 30 minutes or 20 minutes at some point, then I would be more than happy to do that. And you could have your camera off and on mute. It's just that I don't think we could get into a nice relaxed state and do anything of any purpose in such a short time. And so, yeah, so either find me on Facebook, Edward Addison, and I'm the guy that looks like this. And I think it says like hypnotherapist and weight loss coach. And send me a friend request or just send me a message. It will come through on my message requests. And yeah, we literally just put a date in the diary, a time and day over the next few days if you'd like. And we could just hop on and just go straight into it. And yeah, you could get a chance to try it out. And if you had any questions, I'm more than happy to, pass things on. I think, yeah, I genuinely enjoy, hopefully you can tell, I'm really quite enthusiastic about this stuff, and I really want to sort of tackle. Scotland has a lot of heart, obesity, stroke, health problems, and although technically I run a business, I probably help as many people without charging them as I do charging them, because I think that this information, you probably can find it with a bit of Googling, all the information that I teach people is out there anyway. It's just that I'm happy to kind of put it together in a way that hopefully makes some sort of sense. And so yeah, so if you can find me 20 minutes to 30 minutes to kick back somewhere quiet where you won't have a cat jumping on your lap or children about, or as long as it's reasonably quiet at your end, then we could do a wee session. And what I generally tend to do is, seeing we've got a couple of minutes, I can kind of explain what I do. So we use the outside world as a distraction. So you've probably heard the term escapism, Netflix, wine, chatting to friends, going to the footy, whatever it is that you do that's out there in the world. We use our senses to distract us, doing housework, tons of things, reading. It's all out there stuff to essentially distract us from our more difficult thoughts and feelings. And so I can speak about my own mother, I suppose. She busies herself with housework, socializing, and she never, ever, 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 ever stops. And I know that she's running from whatever it is that she's struggling with inside. She doesn't want to listen to her son. And so, okay. Well, and I mean, I'm happy to chat with you soon. Anyway, so if you fancy any chat, then we could definitely do that. And so what hypnosis or meditation essentially is quietening down that, because your eyes are closed and maybe you're thinking about your breathing, you're paying more attention to your inner experience than your outer experience. So that's not like in a mumbo jumbo. That is literally your eyes are closed, so your eyes are not being stimulated by visual things. By your mind paying attention to your breathing or your heartbeat or something that's inside of you, what you're doing is you're allowing your focus to be inward at the expense of all that's going around you. The feeling of your bum on the seat, or the cars going by outside, or the lights above your head. We stop paying as much attention to those things when our eyes are closed and we're breathing more slowly and we're thinking about some internal experience, whether it's a thought or a physical experience. When we go into that quietened state, not only is it quite relaxing, but we can access feelings that we've had in our life. So maybe strength, determination, motivation, happiness, excitement. You can draw on any feelings that you've ever experienced in your life. Because in remembering something, and when we've stopped distracting ourselves with the outside world, we can more closely look at things from our past. And sometimes in therapy, we're looking at not so good stuff. But we can also look at good things, like maybe a Christmas morning that you remember where you felt very happy and excited. Well, when you remember that morning and how it felt, your body can't help but re-experience those feelings in remembering them. And so what I do in the little mini sessions I do with people for weight loss, the little taster sessions, is let's find a time in your life where you felt, and we don't have to discuss it, as long as you can remember something, where you felt good or happy or strong or motivated. And in revivifying those emotions, we bring them back to the now, and then we apply it to, well, what do you want to achieve in relation to eating healthy or achieving mobility goals or whatever it might be. And when we tie that feeling to that goal, suddenly the goal seems much more attainable and the determination's there, which is a really simple process. And it's essentially like a guided meditation. You close your eyes, you take some deep breaths. I maybe invite you to imagine a tingly sensation in your toes, essentially so that you're looking inward rather than paying attention to the outside world. And then we go looking for a feeling that you'd like to feel more of when thinking about something that you want to achieve. It's really simple. It's really pleasant. Folk tend to come out of it feeling good and ready and up for the challenge. And then they go off on their way and kick ass and enjoy life a bit more, I'd like to think. So while we have a minute or so left, please, guys, please send me a little message. And we can, like I say, we can have a chat if you want, or by type if you want, or certainly we could arrange a little mini session, whether it be over this weekend or next week. I tend to work 24/7, if you want to call it work. I don't really call it work because I love it so much. So if you would like to, please reach out, and thank you very much for coming along this evening. Fab.
So we just have to look for you on the Facebook?
Yeah. I mean, you can have my phone number if you like. I use WhatsApp for a lot of stuff, if that's any use to you.
Yeah, I use WhatsApp.
Do you have a pen or anything handy?
I will. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Are we still on?
Yeah. So for the UK, 07864
Yeah.
336
Yeah.
993.
Yeah.
And so for people outside of the UK, I guess it would be +44 7864 336 993. And yeah, I would be absolutely delighted to say hello, and then we could just find a little time for whenever you're available. We'll slot something in.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming along, guys, and hopefully maybe speak to you both soon. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.